Well, welcome everyone to this episode of Stories for Healing. As you know by now, this is something that started towards the end of October, and here we find ourselves in December, still going strong. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is there's a lot of storytellers who would like the chance to tell a story of healing because it's what we do when we enter times that are full of division and antipathy and stress. We don't want to tell stories about how I'm better than you are, or I'm right and you're wrong. We'd rather be telling stories about healing and reconciliation, transformation and growth. And so I'm very pleased to be able to say that today we have storyteller Bonnie Gardner, who has a story for us. So Bonnie, please tell us a story.
Thank you, Jim. So I'm standing in my front yard with my arm around my 10-year-old son, looking at the sign that someone had put there the night before. And I'm having one of those parenting dilemmas where I don't know, is it better to let him see how upset I am, or should I just play it cool like nothing's wrong? It was a really cold day. My teeth were chattering, but I couldn't move. I was in shock. So let me tell you a little bit about that 10-year-old. And I have to go back to the beginning for me, which was a church basement where I sat with my husband, Ray, and took copious notes on attachment disorder. See, when you're adopting a child from overseas, you have to take a certain number of hours of parenting education. And it's not about diapers or schedules, although, boy, that would have been really helpful. Instead, it's about what to expect with a child who's coming from poverty you can't even imagine, and orphanage care. And the class was great. I learned so much. But the one topic that we didn't cover that in 2020, it just is kind of blows my mind, is race. Specifically, what it was going to be like for those of us in that room, all well-meaning white people, to parent children of color. But it was 2007, and it just wasn't part of the curriculum. I mean, we were on the verge of electing the first Black president. We were getting ready to sail into post-racial America, remember? So it was really easy for me to fall prey to what people in the adoption community kind of derisively call rainbows and unicorns. And that's this belief that no matter what your challenges your child faces, you're going to be able to fix them with love. So we finished the class and we did our mountain of paperwork. And sometime later, Ray and I flew to Vietnam and met Owen. And for the first few years, it really was rainbows and unicorns. I was head over heels in love. And I never thought too much about race. I was like living in a little bubble. And then Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson, Missouri, and the Black Lives Matter movement ignited. And then the rhetoric of the 2016 election kind of went off the rails. And America suddenly felt more divided and less welcoming. And me, well-meaning white lady, parenting a kid of color, started to think, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. Bye-bye rainbow, bye-bye unicorn. Which is how I ended up in my front yard looking at this sign that someone put there. It was February 6th, 2017. The Trump administration had instituted the Muslim ban about 10 days before. And this sign, it was a Trump-Pence campaign sign, and on one side it still said Trump-Pence 2016, but on the other side they had papered over it, and in big, fat, black Sharpie, they had written, "Ban them all." Who would do this? Who would do this to a child? Who would do this so that when my beloved 10-year-old, my Vietnamese American naturalized citizen kid opened the front door to go catch the school bus, that would be the first thing that he saw? Ban them all. It took my breath away. So what did I do? Well, I let Owen see how upset I was. And then, because I'm a middle-aged white lady, I called the police and I went on social media. I uploaded a photo of the sign to my town's Facebook group. And within minutes, I got dozens of comments from people, all supportive. Can't believe this happened in our town. Oh my God, I'm so sorry for you. And that all made me feel better. And then the next morning, the mom of a kid in Owen's class called me to offer her support. And she was also hatching a plan. So later that night, Owen and Ray and I were having dinner and we heard noises out in our front yard. Oh God, what now? So we went to the window and we pulled the curtain back and looked out, and our yard was full of kids. Dozens and dozens of kids from Owen's school and their parents, including the mom who'd called me that morning and put the whole thing together. And the kids had flowers and they had balloons, but most of all, they had signs. And they were putting these hand-lettered signs all over our yard. And the signs said things like, "You are welcome here. You belong. You are loved." It was magical. We were outside. I was hugging the moms. The kids were hugging Owen. I think at one point, the kids all sang a song. I thought my heart would burst. And then the next day, people from my church came and put more signs in the yard. And then our mailbox started to overflow with cards from people I'd never even met before. And people who were just out walking the dog had to stop and talk to us about that sign. And everyone said the same thing. This is not who we are. After a while, I just started to deflect it. I mean, the Muslim ban was still in place. People were really hurting. We were fine. But then I realized that it wasn't just that people wanted to comfort Owen or my family. They needed to comfort themselves. This is not who we are. Now, we never found out who put the sign in our yard, but whoever it was changed me. I started reading everything I could about race and racism in America. I took a class on coming to terms with your white privilege. I joined a group of adult adoptees of color who have kicked my butt as they've mostly patiently taught me so much about the mistakes that white parents can make if they're not attuned to issues of race. Before the sign, I thought I was really woke, whatever that means, but I realized I don't know anything. I will never know what it's like for a person of color or a naturalized citizen to make their way in this America. I have so much to learn. I make mistakes all the time, but I am determined to be the ally that my kid needs. And it's not easy. The divisiveness, the rhetoric, they've just gotten worse. And I think we're going to have a reckoning, I hope we are, with the emboldening of white supremacy in this country. And then the pandemic has brought in a horrifying rise in the number of hate crimes and assaults against Asian Americans who are being blamed for the virus. Maybe this is who we are. Nah, because in my heart, I still have rainbows and unicorns. The America that I believe in, the one where everyone is treated equally and equitably and with dignity, It is right over the horizon. It wears the faces of beautiful children holding flowers and balloons. I know we're not there yet, but we're going to get there. I'm sure of it. I have literally seen the signs. They say, "You are welcome here. You belong. You are loved." Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. What a great story. I can't imagine walking out that morning and seeing that sign. Yeah.
It was something I hope to never have happen again.
True. And so now, you're going through your own self-discovery and self-education around this and learning all this. And you have a particular perspective on this, which is that you have a child of color.
Right.
And what might you say to parents who think, as you did, hey, I got this under control, and they absolutely have the best of intentions, right? What would you suggest that they take as their first step to appreciating the kinds of things that you're going through?
Well, I would say really the first step is that you have to get out of your privilege. You have to understand what it is to go through this world as a white person and identify all the things that you don't have to think about that people of color do. And once you get attuned to that, then you can start looking at the world and as your child is experiencing it. I mean, you'll never know what it's really like, but you won't have that blind spot. It's really easy, I think, sometimes for parents in my situation to not think that there's any impact to their kid.
Sure.
And, they really do need to just check their privilege. It's hard. It's hard. If you've never done it, it's hard work, but it's worth it.
And I think one of the things I've discovered is that privilege is a difficult word for a lot of people,
Yes.
because it does carry the connotation of something that you unfairly got your hands on. And I know for some people, advantage is perhaps an easier word to swallow, at least in the beginning stages, to say, well, yeah, I do have advantages. Um, and I didn't, I didn't get them um, because of anything particular I did, but I also didn't steal them,
Right.
and so that's it's a tricky business, a really tricky business. Yeah.
It is. I totally understand that.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. That word, I've seen it raise hackles on people. And I always say, if I'm uncomfortable about something pertaining to race, that means I have an opportunity to learn, and I need to sit and I need to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you very much. What,
Mm.
what, what a great message for us all. So here we are, folks. Sometimes we hear stories that come from folklore. Sometimes we hear stories that come from others, and sometimes we have stories that are true to our own life directly, just like Bonnie's have been. Um, it is hard to say, to look through the world through somebody else's eyes, to look through the world through somebody else's skin. And yet we can do it. If there's anything that can help us do it, it's stories. Because what are stories but an opportunity to see the world a little differently? So I want to encourage you to share this video and the others that you find, either whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, um, but also to share your discomfort, as Bonnie says, with yourself, and to say, how is it that I've managed to feel uncomfortable here, and what might be going on? And trust that everybody around us, actually 99.9%, has the best of intentions. Just maybe we're not always as aware as we could be. So once again, thanks for visiting Stories for Healing, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Bye-bye.